Welcome to the Davis Design Debrief. We're going to learn about some design stuff, everybody's favorite thing. I can see everybody's so excited. And we're going to do this like maybe monthly, so get used to it. I'll keep this short and hopefully relatively painless. I want to start this off talking about the hang tag that I have for my kids' school. That I have to pick my kids up from school, as you all well know, because the last one of these, you heard me coming home with them. And so I have to do this, and every day I have to hang this tag up in my car. And the question I have is, what grade is my daughter Haley in?
Second. You think second?
Great. So, we're going to get there in a minute, but there's a couple pieces of information on this. So I want to break this down from a design perspective. There's the grades here up top, one piece of information, second and fourth. Then we have another piece of information, the kids, Haley and Henry, the kids' names. Now these could be two separate pieces of information on this thing, or maybe these are the two pieces of information, pairs. Second for Haley, fourth for Henry. Interesting. Well, the answer is my daughter is in fourth grade, not second. And every day I go through school line, they sit on a walkie-talkie and I hear them go, Haley second, Henry fourth, every day. And I cringe. And I was like, why are they making this mistake? And the reason that they're making this mistake has to do with a thing called the Gestalt principles. The Gestalt principles are some principles of design that kind of help us to understand, help our brain to understand how the world is organized. So when our eyes look at something and we see patterns, we're like pattern recognition machines. These principles kind of tell us how our brain interprets how things are arranged and laid out and in the world to understand that space. Well, one of them is the Gestalt principle of proximity. And the Gestalt principle of proximity simply says basically that objects that tend to be close together get grouped together. So if you put two things next to each other, people just assume that they go together, like catastrophes and Greg. And so you can use this for good, and it can also be used for bad. So it can help prevent mistakes. You can use this to prevent people from making mistakes, like thinking that Haley's in second grade and Henry's in fourth. And you can also use it when you build things on the web or design stuff to reduce cognitive load. Cognitive load just means your brain is doing a whole bunch of thinking that you don't realize it's doing, and it makes you feel ugh. And the less we feel the better. And design can help us feel less And it turns out proximity can be used that way. So here's an example of how we might be able to use this on the web. And the cool thing about this is something that you can do in like seconds while you're building a web page or something like that. It takes almost no extra time, and the results can be huge. You can make a huge difference in the user experience. So take a form like this. So we've got, 7 form fields here, right? And we've got margin between them, 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 10 pixels. Just a big form. Thump. Well, the thing is they're all grouped together. It's one big thing. And if you do this down a big page, it becomes intimidating. We've all seen those big forms before, right? So if you just adjust some of the margin and you group like fields together and put a little bit more space between the field sets. Anybody remember field sets back in the day? Is that still a thing? Do we still use field sets? I've not seen that forever. Probably because I don't write semantically valid code. And this immediately helps out and makes it easier to understand the interface. So I just adjusted 3 pixels of padding. This is not actually real. I just made up some numbers, but you get the idea. A little adjustment in the margin and you get a big advantage. Same thing if you have like a container, you got a bunch of buttons. We see this in applications all the time, a big toolbar, a ribbon of buttons, button, 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 button. And like if you have 10, 12 buttons in a big row, to the user, it starts to become very difficult to like find where in that group you need to get to stuff. So you just spread them apart and you just group the like functions. Now you can't do this. You can't have 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and like 50 groups of 2. That's another principle we'll talk about later. But you can use this to just immediately make the interface easier to use and a much nicer experience. So that is proximity, one of the Gestalt principles, how it works and how you can use it. And hopefully it's useful in what you do.